you get all my questions.
Okay, we have two speakers on non-agenda items that we'll start with, Eugene Marble and Francine Maxwell. It's either Eugene Marble or Francine Maxwell here. No. Okay. Okay, well, I'd like to welcome everyone present today and those watching the broadcast and call the June 22nd, 2010 regular meeting to order with all board members present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Colorful audience today, don't we?
What's that? Yeah.
Yep. There's a colorful audience.
Okay, the board welcomes your comments in writing or during public testimony. Public testimony request forms are located on the tables to my right, inside the front and back entrances to the auditorium. The board asks that speakers focus their comments on issues and not on individuals. Acceptance of public testimony requests will be closed as each agenda item is called and our discussion begins. Board members and the superintendent are interested in your comments, and staff will be responding to the issues that we hear today. If you wish to address the board today and your name is not on the blue sheet located at both entrances to the auditorium, and you've not already submitted a request for public testimony form, please complete the form and submit it to Ms. Ward. Speakers on agenda items will be called on to speak during the discussion of the agenda item. Non-agenda item testimony was heard at 2 p.m. and will also be heard at the end of the meeting. Okay, we'd like to begin with a report of closed session actions, administrative assignments. I will actually begin. I think we are very pleased and excited to announce that this board has made a decision that we are going to enter into negotiations with Bill Koba as the sole finalist for the permanent superintendent position in this district. Soon to be Superintendent Koba. I don't know if you want to say a quick word before we ask you to report out on administrative assignments.
No, thank you, President Pereira. I am certainly honored, pleased that the board, have had the confidence in the community to go this forward in the process, and I certainly look forward to doing all I can to continue my faith, loyalty, support to this district and to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. Now, Bill, would you like to report out on administrative assignments and issue your information report?
Why don't you do your information report first?
Okay. What I'm going to do while Cheryl gets the official language for the administrative appointment, or I should say notification, let me provide superintendent comments, general information. And I have a couple that I'd like to share with both the board and with the community as a whole. First, I think in a very positive way, a little bit of late recognition. If you remember last November, we announced, based on California Department of Education results, recognition for Title I academic achievement schools. And at that point in time, we recognized several different elementary schools. One was not on the list, and that was Fletcher Elementary School, and that was because performance data had to be recalculated, sent back to CDE, and then confirmed. And at this late date, I did promise both Fletcher leadership and parents that we would recognize them before we ended the month of June. So let it be known that Fletcher Elementary was in fact, an academic achievement Title I school. Next item is much more recent recognition, and for those of you who may or may not be reading Newsweek magazine, but every year they do an annual assessment of the top high schools in the United States, and we've had the good fortune to have schools on that list. And again, this year, 12 schools. Preuss, the UCSD charter school, part of our district, received top honors at 16th. And also within the top 100 was our very own School of International Studies at San Diego High at 89th. There were a number of other schools making up that list at various points, but just quickly, Point Loma, La Jolla, Henry, Scripps Ranch, Mira Mesa, Sarah, Claremont, Lincoln, Crawford, and the Champs Community Health and Medical Practices School all were in the top listing. There are 30,000 high schools in this country, and we were somewhere from 1 to 1,600, so that's pretty doggone good. And we're the only county with 2 top 100 schools across the country, so I think that's remarkable. Some more good news is this past week we learned that, and we've been successful in the past at getting another Department of Defense grant. This is a $2.5 million funding level that will come to us to assist with support for about 9 schools that have a significant number of children of military dependents. And what's nice about this is we work with the Department of Defense, and the whole school benefits, not just a select group of kids. And this will provide for math, science, and counseling interventions for the school. And I think it's a credit to what Dr. Joe Fulcher, Pam Hosner in that Special Student Services area has been able to do, working with both the Navy Region Southwest and with the Department of Defense in general. 2 more items. There were a number of us that were able to participate in the Family Friendly Schools recognition last Wednesday. We recognized 11 schools as being the newest components of our Family Friendly Schools program, and certainly goodwill and recognition to Hardy, Penn, Sequoia Elementary, Montgomery Middle, Madison High for being a part of that recognition, and then for going forward to earn a particular certification, Baker, Carver, Doyle, Normal Heights, CPMA, Mount Everest Academy. So well done, and I think that we've all benefited from that very positive family-friendly program. It's well in line with our cluster engagement. And then I think all of us across the diocese have spent time going forth to and from campuses or auditoriums or gymnasiums, football fields as the case may be. This has been the time of graduation, and I myself was at Dana Middle School on Friday morning, at Point Loma on Friday afternoon, and then yesterday at a very fine continuation school. I went to the 2 Twain ceremonies, and it's amazing. Kids come in all sizes and shapes, and all those sweaty palms and wonderful dancing across the stage was well worth it. So, and then just shifting to our appointments, the board has voted to approve Gary Allstedt to go to the position of to Business Intelligence Coordinator, Information Technology Support Division. And the board has also approved sending final assignment notices to several administrators, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Okay, can we get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, please vote. Great. And could we get a motion for items E1 and E2 together? Approval of minutes for...
So moved.
Yep. Do we have a second?
Well,
Okay, please vote. Okay, and could we get a motion to excuse Board Member DeBeck from the June 17th special meeting?
Second.
Please vote. Okay, and information reports. Mr. DeBeck?
Yeah, well, it's been a busy week with graduations and all, but I really had a great experience at Crawford Teen Court, and I really wanted to focus on that. I went out at their last session that they met, and I had expected something different, but it is a real court. It's a real juvenile court, And what happens is individual students that have regular charges, juvenile charge placed against them, have to volunteer to participate, and they admit guilt, but then they have a jury of their peers that hears the case and testimony from the parents and child and about the situation, and then the teen court or the teen jury selects among sentences that are appropriate for this kind of thing, including probation, which is an interesting thing. What I'd hope to see, and which I would like to see it happen, is that teen courts emerge as a way for the what I call a peer community to self-regulate, to start to look at behavior within our schools and how maybe they would look at their own contributions in running their schools in discipline, where maybe the police are the teachers, but the actual people who try the cases and judge the cases based on a lot of the legal frameworks that we're operating under, so that they know when they move out into society that they accept the responsibility for being a part of the judgment of their own society. I think it's an important issue. I didn't see that, but I do see this as a beginning, and all the law and justice kids that are in these schools, and including those at other parts of our district where there are small schools. I think this is a good starting point, but I would certainly like to see the social science curriculum enhanced with some kind of participation where student government becomes more than cheering on their teams and passing resolutions to support their school activities, but really self-governing. And maybe before I'm done, I'll see that. But anyway, it was a really good experience. There was a presiding member of the court, and there was the leadership there that really helped the kids. So it was serious. It was not fun for the individual, but that was admitted guilt, but it was certainly a good experience for all the kids, and it was a really worthwhile activity. I encourage people to go. You have to swear confidentiality. You don't know the people except by first names, and it's well-run, clear, simple operation, which shows that kids are learning, and I was really thrilled to get that experience. So that was what I wanted to take my time on.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Certainly, this is a time for promotions and graduations, and attended several of them. I think all of us did. But I just really wanted to, first of all, again, congratulate the students that are promoted and those that graduated. But I want to take a moment to really thank our staff. They do a wonderful job at the school sites day in and day out. Despite what's going on down at the Ed Center, they still manage to get the work done and turn out a bunch of great students. And then I think we should also thank our community that keeps turning out for these events. I know Lincoln had an overflow crowd. They looking at, I guess, building a new stadium next year just to accommodate the community that comes out. But the conversation is about where we have our graduations, and many of our high schools have certainly opted to move the graduation ceremonies away from the schools. And I challenge back to the crowd at Lincoln, the community likes coming to the school sites. It engages the community to get a chance to invest in the schools and see the schools, and whatever we can do to accommodate the schools' needs during this particular time, I think we should for all high schools. I don't think the emphasis should be moving the graduation, but bringing them all back on our school site so that our families and their friends cannot be limited to 2 tickets and that type of thing in order to see a graduation, a ceremony that people have worked so hard for. But thank you very much.
Thanks. Dr. Evans?
Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank all the other members of the board who've worked very hard over a period of time on the superintendent search. Lots of interviews and other things have been involved in that. A couple of people doing this in spite of specific challenges. First of all, I'd just like to thank Ms. Nakamura, who was facing an election situation and yet would come in the next day and all of these other important decisions that we had to make, and didn't really miss a beat in terms of participating in this process. I don't think it would be any surprise to anybody here that there are 5 fairly independent-minded people on the board, so that these decisions are not taken lightly or always reached easily, but it's a very important process. And then another person who had a challenge was Mr. Barrera. Our superintendent finalist interviews were on the last night of the with the Lakers' seventh game.
Tough decision there.
Fortunately, our meeting ended before the game ended. And then in terms of the graduations, it's always really heartening to see what is going on. I was able to be yesterday at the graduation at the San Diego Met, and it's just very inspiring to hear the stories of these students who have graduated. And when you look at the mission statement of the district, graduating with the skills, motivation, curiosity, and resilience to succeed, the students at this school really exemplify this, coming from various backgrounds, lots of different challenges, but really moving forward to accomplish something in the world. So that was very impressive, and I was very happy to participate in that.
Nakamura.
Well, I want to thank the staff for organizing the superintendent search as well, and particularly the interviews that were on camera. I think that was helpful for the entire community to see and to participate in and to listen in on that. And I think we made the right choice out of the three, given the totality of all of their background and experience. But it was a lot of work putting that on. It was not easy, and I think staff deserves a lot of credit for that. I have to talk about the graduations that I went to, though. I did 8 of them, and we did 8. And the first one, the one that I think was most interesting was iHigh, which is our online school. We had 3 graduates, and they did everything. They did pomp, they did circumstance, they did the recessional, they did caps and gowns. It was really fun to do, and they were absolute pioneers in what they were doing. Great kids who I'm sure are going to go on to do great things, and appreciate the opportunity. And of course, behind those 3 are the 500 or 600 kids that we've had taking online courses throughout the course of the year, and who have been able to return to their course of studies at their own school. So it's remarkable. But we did Hoover and Henry and Morris and Scripps Ranch High School and Marshall Middle School, CPMA. But my favorite, I have to admit, was Taft Middle School, which was, the parents were exceptionally well behaved and the kids were wonderful. And just before we were about to go on, Tony Gwynn, our legendary baseball player, appeared from the cafeteria, and I got to sit next to Tony Gwynn for an hour and a half in the heat of what was it, Monday afternoon or Monday morning, and he was gracious and kind, but he seemed a little nervous, and he got up to the podium and he told everyone that he had expected to be talking to a classroom, not giving an 8th grade promotion speech. And he's such a professional, just turned it right on and talked about confidence and about doing the thing you think you cannot do. And it's just stepped, pardon the pun, stepped right up to the plate and hit a home run. He was really terrific, and it was fun. He's a big guy, though. I never felt so small in my life sitting next to him. He's so big. But anyway, it was really good. We really enjoyed it's true, the work that's going on throughout the district is amazing. Our kids are so articulate, the speeches that they gave, and their teachers were so excited. You would think it was the first class. Every single one of these schools, you think it was the first class they'd ever graduated. The faculty that participated were so behind the students, so positive. So there are great things going on in our schools every day, and we're just very, very fortunate to be able to support that up here on the Board of Education and try not to get in their way. So.
Right. And I noticed after an hour and a half with Tony Gwynn, Catherine can now hit the curveball like you can't believe.
I could always do that.
You could always do that.
That wasn't Tony.
Now, I want to thank...
Actually, I got to sit next to Oprah's boyfriend at the Met graduation.
Did you?
I want to thank the graduations that I had a chance to participate in, the charter school of San Diego and Aldeo Charter School, as well as Sarah High School, Claremont High School, and then last night San Diego High School. I just want to take a quick minute and echo Dr. Evans. I just want to just give a word of appreciation to our colleague, Board Member Nakamura. We'll, we don't know what's going to happen for sure when the election results are certified, but I can tell you that Catherine has focused so much on the needs of the district and on the needs of our kids during a period when she's been up for re-election. That's a real inspiration, and that I think is a model, for certainly for me and for hopefully all people who are looking at this job. The job's not to get elected; the job's to serve our kids. And Catherine's been out there fighting for a resolution of the state budget in a way that does not devastate our schools during this time period. Going to Sacramento, out there with parents and community groups. I can tell you that there's going to be an auditorium at Patrick Henry High School because of Catherine Nakamura. There's going to be a downtown library because of Catherine Nakamura, and there's so many other positive things that that have happened and will happen in this community because of your service. And I just want to thank you for that, Catherine.
Thank you. Yeah. My goodness.
Okay. All right. So we will now move on to item F2. This is a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of trans notes. Can we get a motion? Second.
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second. I don't know what.
Absolutely. $300 million?
Yeah. Please vote. Okay, looks like it passes 3-1 with board member.
Oh, wait a minute, I didn't pull. Yep. That was a mistake.
Do you want to vote, Sheila?
I want to vote yes.
Let's clear them again.
This is a trans, right?
Yes,
clear them again. This is for the...
It was a long weekend. It was all those graduations we had to do.
I just reached for a button. I'm trigger happy, I'm sorry.
John and Catherine.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
There we go.
Great.
Thank you for catching that.
Right. Okay, item F3, this is an information-only item. This is an annual report to the board by the Community Advisory Committee for Special Education. And I'd like to invite Joyce Clark to come and address us.
Thank you, and congratulations, Superintendent Koba. We're happy to have you. I'd like to start off by saying the Community Advisory Committee for Special Education advises the Board of Education in the district on matters related to special education policy and practice. Oh, that's better. Okay. And we respect and support the district's commitment to quality education and the vision for educational excellence. The CAC annual report addressing in the matter of protecting and preserving civil rights is respectfully submitted to the SDSU Governance Board with purpose and integrity on behalf of the 132,000 SDUSD students representing more than 15 ethnic groups and more than 60 languages and dialects, of which there are approximately 17,000 students with disabilities. We request the district to formally adopt the proposed resolution to protect and preserve civil rights, denounce discrimination and profiling of students based on disability, ethnicity, culture, religion, language, gender identity, and socioeconomic status, and ensure quality instruction for all students. I'd like to start off with a quote, and for those of you who may be familiar with IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, you may be familiar with this quote, but I think it's very important to this discussion. Disability is a natural part of the human experience and in no way diminishes the right of individuals to participate in or contribute to society. Improving educational results for children with disabilities is an essential element of our national policy of ensuring quality, equality of opportunity, full participation, independent living, and economic self-sufficiency for individuals with disabilities. The resolution that we are proposing is fully endorsed by the following community agencies: Access to Independence, Area Board 13, San Diego Autism Society is pending formal approval based on their board meeting, Down Syndrome Association of San Diego, Exceptional Family Resource Center, and Team of Advocates for Special Kids. These are community agencies that serve the broad spectrum of people with disabilities and have been advocates in our community for many years. We're still somewhat concerned about the potential and actual civil rights breaches affecting students with disabilities, and in general, our issues of concern include limited access to core curriculum, exclusion from some extracurricular programs, and attitudinal and architectural barriers which still exist. These concerns are further detailed in the full report. We have addressed our concerns with the Special Education Division and will continue to work with the Special Education Division to find solutions to these challenging issues. The CAC has hosted a number of town hall forums throughout the past several years, and we have raised awareness about the educational students and issues affecting our kids in special education, and we've received both positive and negative responses impacting various students. We want to also take this time to acknowledge the individual staff and school sites that support and upholds high standards for students with disabilities and ensure that our students receive quality education. It's not necessarily the experience, however, for all of our students, and we still feel that what's at the root of this is that we still have some very challenging systems issues which interfere with practice and delivery, that we're not necessarily calling out any one individual, any one department, any one group of educators, that we have a huge district to deal with, and it makes this challenge even more daunting. San Diego is the second largest school district in California. The district is responsible for educating a diverse, complex, and sizable student population with limited resources. Administrating a district of this size inherently creates bureaucracy, rigid, complicated, and sometimes obstructive policies and procedures. We feel that the parallel education systems, general education and special education, further compromise administration and operations, as each system, for the most part, develops policies and procedures and practices in isolation. The separatist practice results in a misunderstanding and failure to consistently implement policy, gaps in professional development, and disparity in student instruction, service, and accountability. We have listed a number of recommendations, and I won't read them all, but at first it is to uphold our first and most biggest concern, again, is to ensure access to quality instruction and safe and equitable learning environments and uphold high achievement standards and expectations for all students, protecting the civil rights and denouncing discrimination. We were very concerned this year, particularly because we were in an interim status with a lot of interim positions. We have transition in board members pending. We had new superintendents, and we didn't want to lose sight of the commitment the board and the district has made in terms of the report by Dr. Thomas Sayre, Improving Educational Outcomes. We felt that was a real good start to identify some of these challenges, and it did bridge some gaps between special education and general education, but there's still some concerns. Parent involvement, that we would like to see parent involvement more holistically, that we don't have our own program, but we have a program which fully meets the needs of the broad, diverse departments. This doesn't mean that parent services for special education isn't doing their job. They've done a good job putting together parent education opportunities this year, but that we feel that it still puts us in isolation. We'd like to see more opportunities when there's a math night or there's a science night, that we have that broader base community bringing our parents and our community together under the same auspices. So again, we're asking you to fully implement the special education document. One of the biggest obstacles, and this comes up repeatedly at the CAC meetings from families, is professional development. And a lot of money has been dedicated, and we appreciate your support of the IDA stimulus dollars this past year. And a lot of good training has erupted because of that, except for one of the things that we would like to see is that we would like to see it again, that there is some type of core professional development plan that mandates attendance for for staff, administrators, general educators, and service providers. To some degree, we're still preaching to the choir. We don't know how that will look or how we can make that happen, but we do think if we don't start really bridging that gap between general education and special education, the majority of the students who are served in general education classes receiving special education services will still not be receiving the educational experiences that they need. We want high expectations and standards for all. There's a lot of old practices that are hard to lose, stereotyping, profiling, and tracking students, including students with disabilities, kids with cognitive disabilities. There still seems to be a lot of issues remaining with ability and providing an experience that meets both academic and functional needs. Universal design for learning. We will be having CAST, I understand, coming out here later this summer to address how can we address curriculum from a global standpoint too, and the CAC strongly supports this research-based framework for developing curricula and providing equal access to students. We're very pleased about the 21st classrooms and technology initiatives. We want to see that fully implemented. At the same time, we want to be able to address the individual needs of kids requiring technology now and may not be included in, it's going to be years to come because their educational experiences today. We feel very strongly about having a strong curriculum and instruction department, again, one that's not separate but one that is holistic and inclusive of special education. And no more cuts to special education. I know that you're dealing with so many budgetary concerns, and we're in a huge crisis. In recent years, special education has made significant reductions in staff, eliminating many administrators and instructional staff, impacting the oversight of program services and direct instruction. While we did need to probably review our top-heavy administration at one point, it can't be so bare-bone that there is no oversight to implement all of these new initiatives. And we do think that it would put us in jeopardy in terms of really being able to comply with student IEPs and federal and state laws. We appreciate the financial challenge that the district is facing. But we do believe that special education has done its due diligence. Adoption of this resolution by the board, the district entity by which policy and practice is established and monitored, affirms the district's ongoing unified commitment to educate and protect students at risk for experiencing discrimination. It symbolizes something at a time when we're all facing economy, and for those of you who may not be knowledgeable of the areas of cuts with other programs and services that support people with disabilities, there's been significant cuts across the board, well beyond the educational realm. So these families are really experiencing this challenge at a deeper level. The governance board is in the unique position to communicate a powerful public statement with potential to positively affect change in attitude, culture, policy, and practice with our district, and to establish a gold standard for 21st century public education. We believe that our public schools are at stake and that it can't be, again, general ed, special ed, that we have to work together. It's not just one responsibility. It's the district's responsibility, it's parent responsibility, and anything that we can do to support the district and the board as we move forward on some of these initiatives, we're happy to do so, and we look forward to a brighter future for all of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. And Superintendent Koba will be looking to the staff to work with Joyce and the CAC to draft a resolution that could come forward to the board.
Yeah, yes, we will, sir.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Joyce. Okay, we'll move on. Item F5, can we get a motion to approve the work year reduction for unrepresented employees?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Just want to make a comment.
Yes, Dr. Evans.
I just want to be clear to the public what we're doing is when we decide we're going to have work year reductions and furloughs for our custodians, our teachers, our administrators. This includes everybody working within the district up to the superintendent and the Board of Education. Everybody is taking the same cut. We've been bargaining with various bargaining units, but there are also employees who are not represented by bargaining units, and they're also included in this shared sacrifice.
Okay. Please vote. Great. Item F6. So this is an agreement of inclusion of positions in the Administrators Association bargaining unit. Yeah. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I thought I moved it. She seconded it.
Oh, sorry.
I did not second.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I'll hand you the gavel and second it. Yeah. Okay. And do we have discussion? Mr. Koba, do you want to ask Ms. Wessler to?
Sandra, would you please come forward to present to the board?
Was this negotiated and agreed to? I thought it was. So.
Good afternoon. These items, actually 6 and 7, are part of the labor relations and negotiated items. In the first proposal before you, the association and the district have reached an agreement with regards to what would be the job titles included within each of the classifications. Item number 6, you have the certificated supervisors bargaining unit with agreement on what job descriptions would be included.
Any questions of Ms. Wesso or comments from board members? Oh, if not, please vote. This is item F6. Okay, and then item F7, can we get a motion?
Approve.
And a
That's
second?
the classified version of the same.
Classified version of the same
Correct.
thing. So we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, please vote. Great. Thank you, Ms. Wesso. Okay, item F8. This is a proposed motion to reconsider the June 12, 2010 board decision regarding the community-based English tutoring program. Mr. DeBeck.
Yeah. Well, at the time that we were in our scramble for discovering a few extra dollars, this item was discussed, and it basically was an amount that was explained to me that included only adults, and I after reviewing some of the comments people sent me, I wasn't sure that I had voted the way I thought, so I'm asking for reconsideration. And if it's reconsidered, I would like to have the amount reduced, but not to the tune of the full amount. I'm proposing, and I make a motion that if you do vote it that way, we could probably combine a reconsideration with a reduction to an amount of $530,000 instead of the $930,000.
The amount being reduced would be $530,000.
Yeah, and that would be subject to program adjustment by the administration. We don't have to come back and approve how they do it, but just that would be their new budget. So the savings, instead of being the $930,000 would be $400,000 under my proposal to reconsider.
Do we have a second to Mr. DeBeck's proposal to reconsider?
I'll second that.
Okay. Now we've got a number of public speakers, so I'll call folks up. Candy Nieto, Barbara Pongsrickle, Laurel Slater, Anna Vargas, Luz Maria Tackett, and I'm going to ask to limit public comments to 2 minutes because of the number of speakers we have on this item.
Good afternoon. How are you? Good to see you again. My name is Dr. Barbara Pongsrickle, and I'm the CBET coordinator for San Diego Community College District. And I've spoken here before with Candy Nieto, who I work with San Diego Unified, and she wasn't able to be here today. And so we were asking you to reconsider elimination of the CBET program and at least reduce the program so we could keep part of the program going. It's an ongoing grant that we've got since 1999, and I feel like it would be very difficult to start up the program again. The equipment and materials, those type of things are in the tens of, thousands of dollars that we had purchased. I just wanted to say that, I brought, and you have in front of you, some information that we just collected for the spring tutoring. And, I attached the pledge so you can see the accountability, the mandate that we do for the state. And then also there is one from a student from Rodriguez, and you can see how the students log in the tutoring time and the sessions that they read with the children. And so for spring we tutored 1,206 children, 90,300 minutes. We tutored a total of 1,757 hours. We had 4,885 tutoring sessions of 20 to 30 minutes per session. And 1,407 children were tutored. We are at Cherokee Point Elementary School. I just got an email from Mr. Higa, the principal there. He feels like our program is helping the children with student achievement. We have a lot of our parents, our teachers, we have some children that were tutored and children of parents here in support of the program. A lot of the teachers are saying this one-on-one connection with the children has improved reading and a lot of the other children's activities. So if you could take a look, and I just brought pledges of parents that we have.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Barbara. Yeah.
My name is Luz Maria Tackett. I am a community assistant at the CBET program. It seems to be a misunderstanding about our program. I'm glad it was clarified, and thank you for putting us back on the list. Our program is for the benefit of the children first. In order for the adults to be in our program, they have to sign a pledge card that states that they will tutor. Our program is not another adult education ESL class. It is an ESL and tutoring class. The children in our schools need help, and some receive help from other tutors. We have, in CBET, 17 sites with an average of 20 to 30 adult students in each school. They tutor once a week, 20 to 30 minutes in a classroom, and they tutor the same children week after week. And yes, they also tutor their own children at home. After a few weeks of tutoring, the children are reading better, they have higher self-esteem, and yes, the adults are also learning English. I know you have to balance the budget, but please consider reducing our program, not discontinue it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ana Vargas, and I'm a community assistant too for the community for the CBET program. And pretty much what I'm about to say has been said, but I just like to reconsider that you guys make possible for our kids. Not just for the only Spanish-speaking kids they're coming to San Diego, but just for the, we too have some Somali, Korean, Japanese, and Burmese people enroll in this district. So please reconsider, and I will appreciate it when you've been able to save the program. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Laurel Slater. I'm a CBET instructor. I'm also here representing a kindergarten teacher from Rodriguez Elementary named Michael Spingola. He asked me to read this letter. I will summarize it instead because it's fairly long. Mr. Spingola has 25 students in his kindergarten class. 23 of them are English language learners. He talks about the advantages of once a week having a one-to-one adult-to-student ratio. How many of your kindergarten classes ever have a one-to-one adult-to-student ratio? You know, we're not living in a perfect world. In a perfect world, you would not have 25 students in a kindergarten class. But we do have a perfect opportunity, and I would like you to seize that perfect opportunity. You have adults who are desperate to learn English, desperately interested in helping their children succeed in school. They are eager to volunteer in these kindergarten classes. You have kindergarten teachers who have 23 of those 25 students who are all second language learners. This is a dream come true for that kindergarten teacher to have 25 corresponding adults walk in the door once a week and sit down and provide one-to-one tutoring. Mr. Spingola talks about how his students' reading abilities have improved. He says it's almost as if each student has their own personal teacher each week when we collaborate. He also talks about the behavior in class. The students have learned that there is an expectation to remain on task and a certain standard of behavior to maintain when working with an adult tutor. This is also translated into their classroom behavior. We have elementary schools who have been waiting on a waiting list to have CBET programs. Please take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Gretchen Bitterlin, the ESL Program Chair for the San Diego Community College District in Continuing Education. I did submit requests to speak. I didn't hear my name.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. I taught myself in the CBET program in 1999, and so I'm very familiar with the program. It is a very, very unique program. I'm here today mainly to speak on behalf of one of our instructors, Erica Fulton, who could not be here today, but she teaches at Field and Edison Elementary Schools. And I'd like to read you just parts of a typical story that can only happen in a CBET class. In the midst of a budget crisis, it's easy to lose sight of the success stories that occur in the district. I would like to share a success story that could only happen in a CBET class. CBET hinges on the weekly tutoring sessions that take place in kindergarten classes throughout the district. My story is about a student in the kindergarten class that we tutored each week at Field. At the beginning of the year, the kindergarten teacher and I paired the parent readers up with the kindergarten children, but one student posed a challenge. Let's call him Anthony for privacy's sake. Anthony is a student with autism, and he struggled to communicate his ideas. He's an incredibly bright little boy, but his language production was centered around parroting. So when you'd ask him, "Did you like the story?" he would simply repeat, "Did you like the story?" His wasn't so much an issue of a second language learner not having the necessary vocabulary to convey his ideas, but something much more basic. He had a hard time coming up with original ideas that he could use to connect with another person. Then Dahlia came to our CBET program. A very bright and warm mother of two, Dahlia and Anthony clicked. Anthony's teachers had been working diligently all year to bring him out of his shell with success. And when Dahlia became his parent reader, something magical happened. He began to consistently answer her questions. Already a good reader, Anthony benefited from something more than just practicing his reading skills. He was able to basically succeed thanks to this connection. So please consider supporting this program. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carolisa Morgan. I also registered to speak on the computer.
Yes.
I'm a CBET teacher at Logan Elementary, and as we all know, language is power. Anybody who has been to a foreign country where they didn't speak the same language knows there's really no way to integrate, to feel part of the same society without knowing the language of that country. I had a student last semester named Erica Talavera who came into class one day. She was so excited. "Teacher, my son often has asthma attacks and I have to rush him to urgent care. This time I was able to explain everything to the staff. I could understand their questions. I could answer their questions all by myself." She couldn't have done this without our CBET program, without the child care it provides, without the real-life situations that the students practice and that they are tested on in our curriculum, for which they do receive a certificate, and also they receive a certificate for the one-on-one tutoring, which looks like this. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Calvillo. I'm also a community assistant with the CBET program. As you notice, a lot of the children and the people that you see behind us are students of the CBET program. Okay, first off, I just want to say that they do not have adult English classes through the community college district, but in CBET there are numerous students who have toddlers who need babysitting. That is where CBET comes in. We are here to help them learn English, and in turn they must tutor in an English classroom to help out students in the city schools. How's that to even think that they would ever want to cut out this program, as our students are running from one school to another just to be able to learn English and to tutor in two different classrooms and to have more confidence in speaking English with their children. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Alice Dembo. I am also a community assistant at Rodriguez and Balboa Elementary. I am a native speaker, and I have enrolled upwards to 30 or so students per class. As the school year progressed, I was pleasantly surprised that students began to communicate with me. My favorite was, "Miss Alice, have a pretty weekend." Simple as that. Simple as that. To see and feel the anticipation on the faces of the kindergarten students greeting their special guest tutors is priceless. It's priceless. When the CBET students read to the children and the children respond by reading back, you smile so hard it hurts. It's just beautiful. The children in the CBET program began greeting us in the morning. "Good morning, can I paint?" and goodbye when they leave. Music time was my favorite. to hear the sweet voices singing lyrics while learning the alphabets, and the dancing is sheer joy. They dance and sing as though no one is watching. This particular program format is brought to elementary campuses because this is where it is needed, and it can reach out community and school-wide, bringing academic achievement that will flow like the circle of life. How cool is that? It would be a travesty to cut this much-needed, innovative, and successful program. Thank you. Have a pretty day.
Good evening. My name is Rosa Bojorquez. I'm at 3 schools. I'm at Porter Elementary, Jefferson Elementary, and Central. So I'm there all day. Basically, they've said it all. I believe in this program as paying it forward. We're parents first and teachers second. We learn a second language. We're here to learn and to educate our children. We learn English language, and we teach our children. We come in, we learn, and we teach. Paying it forward. We learn what we can to try to teach our children. You don't know how many times we've had parents come, and our students come and tell us, thank you very much, millions of times, to tell us that they've learned something new and to appreciate what we've taught them, but really they come and taught us everything. You know, you've given us the opportunity to be able to teach them the English language. 20 to 25 parents go in every week to volunteer in a classroom. And what do? Is we raise children's scores and self-esteem. And that's what you're doing. You're helping us educate parents. And for that, I thank you. And you're giving us the opportunity to educate parents, to give these children self-esteem, to go out there in this world, to become better parents, to become better students, and to get a better education. The parents, children, and perhaps teachers and better members of this, society. I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. I appreciate the fact that you've given us the opportunity to come here and be able to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for everything.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mojdefa Davisat, a CBET instructor, and I'd like to share this email which I got from the kindergarten teacher at Sherman Elementary with you. To whom it may concern, I would like to express my thoughts and feelings about the adult tutoring that has been happening in my classroom this year. It has been a wonderful experience for my students. They really enjoy having the adults come in and read with them. My students look forward to the tutoring time and often ask when the adults will be back. The little books that the students receive from the adults are especially nice because the students take them home and read them over and over. This is good practice for the students because they themselves are learning how to read. It is a very good, rewarding experience for everyone involved, and I hope that this program continues in the future. Sincerely, Amanda Fehlauer, kindergarten teacher, Sherman Elementary. Thank you.
Hi, mi nombre es Micaela Aguilera. I am a student for CBET class. She is my daughter, Wendy. CBET helped me and I helped her. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's clear you do.
Hi, my name is Wendy Aguilera. I'm from Encanto Elementary School. I enjoy the adults coming to my classroom and read to me.
Thank you, Wendy.
Hello, parents, children, and adults. My name is Marilyn Collin. My mom goes to the CBIT classes. She went to the CBIT classes for 2 years. The CBIT classes is a program that helps adults that don't know English. What I liked about the CBIT classes is when the parents came to read, they knew what their books meant. I just don't want you to take out the CBIT classes. I want children to enjoy the CBIT classes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Frida Moreno. I want you to know that don't take the what did it call?
Away.
You're doing great.
CBET.
That's a girl.
Thank you.
There we go.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Marcos Saguiñaga, and I need a CBET for. I try help my daughter. My daughter is is in the first grade. She is 6 years old, and when I went to school, my daughter is happy too, because she knows, she thinks, oh, my father go to school too, and she try learn like me. I need CBET for my daughter, for my family, and for my community. Thank you.
Firstly, I would like to thank you for serving community. That's exactly what CBIT students learn to do. Their target population is children, the little people. I teach Encanto, at the Encanto, I teach CBIT classes, and the teacher whose students benefit from CBIT program could not be here, so I'm going to read you their letter.
Could you give us your name?
Sharon Jov Donaghy. This is the letter from Claudia Soria. My name is Claudia Soria. I am a first grade teacher at Encanto Elementary. I was sad to hear of the possibility of the elimination of CBIT program. I have been fortunate to have CBIT students tutor the children in my classroom for the last 2 years and would love to have them continue tutoring my students next fall. Our CBIT teacher, Ms. Javdan, regularly consults with me and we coordinate our lessons. CBIT students come to our first grade class once a week. The children eagerly await them and excitedly greet them. Some children even go to the door to welcome them. The CBIT students have a story prepared for reading. They read the story and sound out the phonic words and teach the sight words and have the student repeat. They ask comprehension questions and have the children answer in complete sentences. Their questions help with many skills, including critical thinking and problem solving. Additionally, I have noticed that very many CBIT students are volunteering at Encanto and carry their responsibilities very well. This helps many more children other than the ones they tutor directly and, of course, their own children at home. I humbly request that the board would reconsider this issue and maintain this excellent program for the sake of our children. Respectfully, Claudia Soria.
Okay, we've got additional speakers, Candy Nieto, Julio Sierra, Christopher Sierra, Matilde Velasquez, Claudia Soria, Jasmine Vera, Mayerling Vera, Clara Leanos, and Iriam Leanos. If nobody's present, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you very much, and certainly I support Mr. DeBeck's motion. I could not convey what you conveyed today to my peers last week when they made the decision to trim this program. I know how important it is. We talk about the connection between parents and families, especially the ones that English is not their first language. This has been a very critical program to them. We also even heard today how children feel when their parents are coming to their rooms to volunteer. We call this the year of volunteerism, and certainly it's okay when people can go and volunteer, but when parents that don't speak the language can go into their classes and read to students and lead by example, it not only helps them, but it helps their community as well, and it fosters the need that we say to have an educational theme throughout the community. The academics are first. I certainly, the motion is to restore most of the funding. I know I wish I could amend it to restore all the funding. I understand that in this budget crisis we can't, but I really want to thank those that came out today to speak, and especially the children. I'm not in favor of children coming to speak. I think it's putting them out there a little bit, but I do thank the children that came and spoke today, because they certainly have valued the fact that their parents were able to come to their classrooms and actually read to them and be a part of their educational learning. Thank you.
Yeah, so I certainly think this is a very valuable program. As I mentioned before, I was an ESL instructor, and this is exactly the type of program that I would have suggested be developed at that time. I think it's just excellent. And it certainly was on the bottom of my list in terms of the types of things that we would cut. However, there were a lot of other things I suggested cutting that we couldn't necessarily come to an agreement on. I just think it's important, and this is more for the board, that when we propose a change, in this case $500,000, that we point out where that $500,000 will be taken out of, because it's all very easy for us to say who could be against a program like this. But I think we need to accept what the trade-offs are. One of the things we decided at the beginning was that we were going to protect class size, and there were certain costs associated with that. So I'd just like to ask Mr. DeBeck, and this is not a formal rule on our board, but in terms of restoring $500,000, where would you cut?
Well, that's not the issue, because we already have some items that we've cut that we haven't alternatively cut either. I'll say this is going to be an ending balance problem, and we already know we've got an ending balance problem. So, but in this particular case, I'm just like other programs that we put up, I think that this is a program that would be hard to replicate if we decimated it completely, and I want to make sure that there's the cadre of people that believe in it that remain, so that we don't have to invent the program over again. It's really successful. I made a mistake. My last vote, I would never have done it. I remembered the program from the past, but I wasn't clear at the time because we had so many other things. So if it had been left to me, it wouldn't have been cut anyway. So since I was on the prevailing side, I asked for it not to be cut, and that's why I brought it back for reconsideration. It isn't that we voted the whole thing gone. We're still voting part of it gone. So I think that it's appropriate for us to say, we have some other risks that the board has been willing to assume, and I'm willing to accept this one.
Okay, and just in response to that, I understand that point of view, and I do think it's definitely a step forward in terms of cutting back rather than eliminating the program. That does address the fiscal reality.
Ms. Nakamura.
I just am very concerned that at this late hour, we have gone through so much in trying to balance the budget. I think that we do have an obligation to try and find where this money is going to come from and figure it out. Now, alternatively, we've asked Mr. Koba to develop a restoration plan and to have this listed on the restoration plan near the top and put that in as prioritization, I think is probably the more responsible action. I'm concerned about us not being able to balance this budget, and that it's as valuable as this program is, $500,000 right now. I've never seen this district cut this close to the bone, and if we don't, follow through with what we originally said, people could bring things back. We can reorganize this budget all over again, and I know it's important, but and I value the people that came out here. I taught English as a second language myself as well, and I live with a second language learner at home and my husband. But we've tried to make priorities within the budget. And, I don't think I can step away from this, but I can strongly recommend and insist that it be placed on the restoration plan, and as funds become available, that we manage to put it back there. So that's, I think, the most responsible thing to do, and absent actually identifying something that we're willing to cut somewhere else, which means, unfortunately, we are at a point where hundreds of children are affected when we make other choices as well, and that doesn't give those groups or an opportunity to come down and let them speak and say, well, my program's at risk, and I can bring down their children and stand before the podium and explain why their program should not be cut. Rather than doing this at the 11th hour, it just doesn't seem very democratic as strongly as we have tried to have a democratic process in place, and we've got to put this budget to bed tonight. So we all know how close we're cutting to the bone.
I just want to point out that the motion that Mr. DeBeck has made of cutting $530,000 from this program and preserving $400,000.
$400,000 from that.
The other way around.
$400,000 was the amount that to retain $530,000.
Okay.
So of the program, which is $930,000, I'm calling for a cut of $400,000
and retaining $530,000.
Yes,
okay.
And the point is that I felt that I was misled, and I made a mistake on my vote. So it is democratic to reconsider. It's part of Robert's rules. If you voted in the majority, that you get a chance for reconsideration. So we've heard other people as well.
Yeah.
In this particular case, I felt that the information I was provided was incomplete, and so as a mistake I made, I'm asking for a reconsideration.
Okay.
As far as the program, there's even, as we speak, currently information coming out of Sacramento about different ways of the money coming down and changes in the budget. So this is very tentative anyway. And while I'm saying, yeah, sure, I'm not going to find exact dollars to cut that match it. But I feel secure enough that I'm willing to say this I'll call it in the realm of the range of cuts we've made. I think this is a very big amount of money. So I'm going to say I want it reconsidered.
So I support Mr. DeBeck's motion, and the point that I was making, even with my clear understanding of Mr. DeBeck's motion, is that it still leaves our budget in balance in terms of what we're going to present, what we're going to hear at 5 o'clock. We're right on the edge, no question. We were right on the edge before. But if we accept Mr. DeBeck's motion, we still have a balanced budget going forward. I also just believe that had we given better notice to the CBET community on June 12th, and the CBET community had been able to be here and present to us on June 12th, I think at that time we might very well have made other decisions. I'd be happy to point out where I would exchange the $530,000 that Mr. DeBeck is restoring. But we remain in balance regardless.
Good.
Yeah.
And that's the only point I was bringing up in terms of, if we could restore the entire amount, that would be great. And I think Mr. DeBeck has taken a more prudent approach in terms of cutting part of it. But we have two items on the budget. We're talking about this, and then we're talking about the budget later. I would just like to ask the staff if in fact, by changing this cut from $930,000 to $400,000 cut, with the ups and downs of what you've done, and I know it changes day to day with the budget.
What's the result?
Where does that leave us in balancing the budget exactly? And I understand it changes day to day, but today, which is the day we're approving it, where does it leave us?
As we stand here right now, we are balanced with about $630,000 to spare.
So that means,
so it's a razor-thin edge there.
So we have 100,000 left over to have 1.2 billion.
What do you know?
Yeah.
If we do this.
Okay.
That's getting close, but it's...
Okay, so please vote.
Getting close. No.
That wasn't an accident, by the way.
Okay, thank you. That was not it. Motion passes 4-1. Thank you, CBET community, for coming. Okay, we'll move on to item G2. This is a waiver application for Title I Part A, the LEA plan. Can we get a motion? This is item G2.
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion, Ms. Jackson?
I do understand that we have a deficit. I cannot support balancing the deficit off of our neediest population. When you ask for a waiver that exempts us from 14 days notifying our parents of programs, I think that it's wrong. I think at a minimum they should have 14 days notification. So there's some things in this waiver that really they're not budgetary items. They're just good common practices to do with parents that I think that we should do with parents. I think one of the things that this kind of says to me is that we do not value the most neediest parents in our district. So therefore, we don't need to notify them when we're changing how we spend the money that their children are receiving to help them accelerate in their academic lives. So I cannot support this, especially with the 14-day parent choice waiver and all of those things. I just can't.
Okay. Any further comment? If not, please vote. Okay. Motion passes 3-2. Okay, item H3 is the discussion of the first reading of our 2010-11 budget. That's going to be heard at 5 p.m. So we'll move on to item H4. Can we get a motion
Move
to
approval?
We've got a motion and a second. Please vote. Try it again. Okay, a motion and a second on item H4. Okay, great. Okay, and then can we get a motion on item H5?
Second.
Got a motion and a second on item H5. Okay, great. And then item H6, this is about our strategic technology plan, our 5-year plan. Can Mr. Koba, do you want to? Well, we got a motion to approve. Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Koba, do you want to? Yep. How about, can we just get Mr. Koba to kind of tee this up for us? Yeah.
Thank you, President Barrera. This is a requirement for a 5-year information technology strategic plan. Our current one expires at the end of the month. Daryl Lagacé, the Chief Information Technology Officer, and a team have been working on this, and it's a very extensive document. Daryl's here and prepared to highlight any particular element of it, but this is in keeping with and sustaining where the Board of Trustees and the district want to go in supporting the community and putting the technology insertion that we started a year ago going forward for the next 5 years and continue to retain us as a national leader in terms of information technology in a school setting.
Right, Mr. DeBeck?
Well, that's the very point I wanted to make.
You want to speak?
The plan ran out. And, I thought I've been talking. I don't know. The plan ran out, and it was adopted 5 years ago, and I hope we don't wait another 5 years to adopt plans because this technology stuff changes fast. And I frankly, I think all of our, I'll call it long-range plans, need to be annually reviewed and tweaked for the changes that we might want to make, because even if we just look at the change in boards that occur, we should have been looking at least every time the board changes, personnel, any one of us, that there should be a re-up, that we're all recommitting and looking at the plan and adopting it, because a lot of people don't even know we had the plan. And now, I hate to think that this plan, it may be brilliant, I'm sure it is, but I certainly want to have a look at and make modifications before we get to the end of the 5th year. That's what I'm speaking to. So I'll support the plan, but with the knowledge that it's I'll call it a living document and needs change.
Ms. Jackson.
Okay, and I know you're going to say it's been on the website and all this long information that you gave us. I thank you for the write-up about that. My concern is a little bit more. I'm concerned again about the Title I funds being used in this plan. It is supplanting, not supplementing. When you look at the budget on page 96 and 97, the PD is paid for by the Title I funds. So then this tells me that we're only going to in-service teachers at Title I schools. I don't think so. And then I think you further go on page 101, they say that the school site council to work out with the principals how to allocate the categorical funds in our budget that we'll see at 5 o'clock. And the way we just did, we're already taking a good chunk of the Title I funds away from the central office and away from other areas. Now we're going at that at the school site. I have a problem. I have my problem, and I'm sorry if I'm the only one who's going to speak to this, but we receive Title I and federal funds for poverty, for children that are in poverty. But we take that money and we spread it around the whole district for everyone. And then we wonder why we can't make our mission statement. We can't make it because we don't allocate the funds the way we claim that we're going to meet the mission statement. I'm very frustrated because each time I look at 3 documents in here today have gone to Title I funds for their core of their funding. That is not what Title I funds are. Now, the board can allocate it that way. Yes, we had the authority to do it, but we need to make sure it's on record that is not what those funds come here for. They come here to help those students. And this is not supplementing. This is supplanting. This is supplanting. And it's very frustrating to me that we keep supplanting and not supplementing these students' education. Okay?
Yeah, well, I understand that point, but I have to say that we have a policy to spread kids around this district, and we have a lot of poor kids in a lot of schools.
I didn't say that.
But you know, if somebody wants to say to send our technology money or any of the money that comes from federal grants out proportionally according to the number of kids in poverty, that's a difference than what the state says. The state and you are saying you want to concentrate in with poverty. Well, we haven't got. We have concentrations of poverty which we've allocated under our Title I formula, but I personally don't think that when I approve this plan, I'm approving, I'll call it the diverting of funds illegally to a program. We talk about Title I and how we spend our money, and I've just voted no on that. But when it comes to technology, I'm adopting, and when I vote on this, if I'm adopting funds for the next 5 years, I'm not.
You are. You're adopting $1.6 million every year of Title I funds for this particular program.
If that's the case,
and my point is this: is that, and we've gone through this in the district.
I didn't interrupt you.
Finish, John.
My point is that each year we'll allocate funds, and so when you may say that they're asking for, or in the plan they're saying they're going to use these funds, and each time that comes up we'll have the right as a board to decide whether they get them or not. Now the same thing happens for E-rate. There may be a better E-rate anyway, and they may not even need the funds. So what I'm only talking about when I say approving a technology plan is certainly not the funding, because I approve the budget every year, and so does the board. So they may say, well, we're anticipating a certain amount of money, and this is the way we're going to show you how we're going to do the plan. And I suspect that if the money doesn't come from E-rate, or that we don't allocate the Title I money, that they'll have to modify the plan, and that's part of why I call it a moving document. I'm not going to vote against this because of the way they propose to fund it. I may vote against the way they plan to fund it next year if it includes Title I. We'll leave it at that.
Ms. Nakamura, and then
Yeah, I'd like to. This is it's a good plan. It's well thought out and encompasses every corner of the district, I think. We have 60% poverty within. Is that correct, Mr. Kova? At this point, aren't we at? We're about 60% Title I.
We have 80 schools in program improvement and about 66% of our children in a free and reduced poverty status.
66% now?
Yes.
We're up to 66%?
Yes, I think that's about the
I'm not worried about supplanting. I think there are plenty of kids out there, with, that have needs, and probably a lot more than that than we know in this economy. It's ridiculous to say that this is not going to go where it's needed, because it most certainly is. And knowing Mr. Lagasse, probably quicker rather than later. But I know your commitment to students from all walks of life, but most especially those that don't have opportunity. So it's furthermore. Well, at any rate, I'm making a point. I completely support this, and I don't support making accusations that are not accurate or give a different point of, a different picture of the district than is accurate. So,
let me just comment. First of all, it's not ridiculous what I say. My comments are just as well as anyone else on this board. A couple of things this year. As we rolled out our I-21 plan, what we didn't have in front of us, we got very late, was how that plan was going and which schools were getting their needs met. I think when we got toward the end of it, we saw that a lot of schools, the last on the list, were those high poverty schools. Now, the commitment is that when we start year 2, we'll start with those schools first, and I hope that it's true.
It is true.
But what I think is that report should come here so that we can monitor it, because people say this, everything is spread out, everything is equal, and the bottom line is that it's not unless it's in black and white. Okay, and we learned this year, okay, and a lot of those schools still have not received all of their supplies, and I know because they're in my district. Okay, so it's very frustrating to sit here and say this, and then when I'm in the community, my community is saying we don't have, or we're about to get, and the year is almost over. So I believe you, Mr. Lagasse, when you say that next year you're going to reverse the cycle and make sure that those schools that have the most poverty get their technology first. But by no means is this a ridiculous thing. What's ridiculous is that if our budget, the foundation of our system here, rests on the backs of the Title I funding, then that's on the back of the poverty students, and that is a correct statement.
Mr. Lagasse, did you want to?
So I have just a couple of things to add. First off, I thank you for allowing us to present this plan today. I want to recognize the work of our steering committee. It's over 30 members strong. We have met many times this year and thought long and hard about trying to create the document you have before you today. I think it's difficult to develop a 5-year technology plan, but this is part of the requirements that the federal government and the state ask us to do. Therefore, you're having to see us project out a financial plan that matches that. I do want to advocate for a couple of things in here. We know as a district where we're headed with I-21, we also have to look at increasing funds to replace equipment, and we have that's recognized in this plan. I'm not going to directly address the Title I. I would defer to the superintendent or the deputy superintendent, but I do believe that this is those dollars were stated in the LEA plan, Nellie, that were already approved by you on how to do the professional development for I-21. So I think it's key to know that we didn't bring this just in this plan, that it came forth in multiple plans for the district. I think the other thing that's important to note, as Mr. DeBeck mentioned, we intend to monitor this annually. This is, like we learned this morning, the GSA-2 is a process, it's a journey. It's not something you can put in paper and put off to the shelf. I think that may have happened with our old technology plan. We didn't have the ability to fund it. We didn't have a vision around it. It wasn't integrated into everything we're doing for students. It was a technology plan. We're wanting to focus this on an instructional learning plan. And technically, the state and the government asked us to call it a tech plan. And unfortunately, that's what it is. But I think as you read through the document, you will see the collaboration between all the departments in the district that have helped develop this. And even still, it could use more, but it's as much work as we could accomplish in the year we had to do it.
Okay, great. Board members, please vote. Dr. Evans.
Yeah, I just wanted, whether Mr. Lagasse or Mr. Koba, in terms of this issue of the technology plan and the use of Title I funds. I mean, I know we're in district-wide program improvement. I know that we have a large number of students who are Title I eligible. How does this all fit together?
Well, I think it comes together because this is a district-wide application. We have, through Title II, the ability to use professional development for all teachers in order to advance the effectiveness of learning and instruction. And I think a good portion of that title or federal money is going to be used in professional development for teachers to be able to execute the smart classroom.
Okay.
So could we use some Title II funds here? I mean, I don't see the Title II funds listed at all on page 96 when it shows the funding streams.
I believe it's just the Title I in this case here, but I think we could crosswalk it back into the LEA.
Okay, please vote, board members. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Lagasse. Does any board member wish to pull any item off of the consent agenda?
Yes, I will.
Okay, Ms. Jackson.
Just a second here.
No.
We've got speakers.
This is the whole consent we're doing now.
Yes.
Okay, we've actually got one speaker on item I-68, and this is Stuart Payne. Stuart?
Yes.
Yep.
Did we pull any ourselves?
Not yet. We're going to hear...
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stuart Payne. I'm a track coach at Hoover High School. The board action officer is bringing around two separate documents for you. I spoke before you a couple of weeks ago about this agreement with the CIF. What I would like to point out, I'm sending around those two documents. One is a slide presentation. I apologize for the small print, but I was trying to conserve paper. And then the other packet is a list of articles and some letters, communications between the CIF and certain schools. The first thing I would point out to you is the one document that says Crawford T-shirts, message Rouse, section commissioner. And this is something that happened a couple of years ago to one of our schools where the section commissioner was upset because some parents of a student did not agree with his decision, and that ended up resulting in some disciplinary actions against coaches, and I'll say that's alleged because I don't know that to be factual, but it did end up in that team being sanctioned for a T-shirt, which is rather ridiculous. The other documents that you'll find in that package, some include some letters concerning the Poway program, and I'm sure some of you remember the incident at San Diego High School in the boys basketball program. What's interesting is right around the same time there were some issues in the Poway program, both their basketball and their wrestling programs. And what's interesting is there was no investigation, I shouldn't say no investigation, no outside investigator hired to investigate Poway, whereas they specifically hired an outside investigator for San Diego and took some very severe actions, which I think this board was made aware of. The Poway programs got no sanctions. The Poway program was allowed to continue to do what they do under a promise that they would do better. That's not fair, and they certainly are not consistent. I would like to refer your attention to the slide presentation. I just want to point out a couple of things, and I know I'm probably going to run out of time, so I'm going to beg for your indulgence for a couple extra minutes. If you look at the first slide at the top on the right, I'm sorry, not the first slide, the second slide on the right, it talks about their purpose. And their purpose is to establish rules and regulations for grades 9 through 12. They have no authority over what happens in the 7th grade. Yet this school year, they sanctioned 2 athletes from Lincoln High School who were 8th graders transferring into the 9th grade and lived in the Lincoln district. But they chose to listen to some anonymous information that was not accurate at all. The commissioner, when the Crawford T-shirt incident happened, he made a comment in the newspaper that said he was afraid that a riot would break out if he took any additional action when that incident occurred. He has also made comments in the paper that your coaches, myself included, would be considered, if I'm accused of violating their bylaws, I'm considered guilty until proven innocent. And that's not the way we do things in this district. I'm going to point out...
I have to ask you to wrap it up, Mr. Payne.
I will. I just want to draw your attention to the 2 slides at the bottom of the first page, where it talks about their administrative decisions. And what you're doing when you sign this agreement is you agreeing to all of their decisions, right or wrong. And you're also agreeing that if any of your principals speak out against their decisions, that you're subjecting them to sanctions. So in closing, I would suggest to you that to continue with this agreement as it is in its current form is to enter into a deal with the devil. This organization is out of control. They are not being accountable to you, the coaches, or anybody else in this district. I thank you.
Thank you.
Before he goes, I have a question. Can I ask him a question?
Not supposed to, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no.
I mean, we're not.
I think he's speaking against membership, but I don't hear an alternative.
Well, I appreciate the question, and I'll give you several examples. I think that before... One will do. You have time before you have to sign this agreement. I would suggest that you hear from the coaches in this district to hear how they feel they're being treated, and you need to hear from the parents in this district about how they feel their children are being treated. As far as alternatives, I think you're in a position, once you hear from those that you are serving, to force about some change. And I'm really not advocating against membership. I think you need to be prepared to take that action if it comes to that. But I think there's some things you can do to get this organization to be accountable to you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Payne.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to pull items.
Okay. If you want to pull an item, please say.
Right.
We're not going to engage with the speaker at this point.
Item 102, I-02, I-34.
Wait a minute, I-32?
I-02, I-34.
I-34, I-52, I-53, and I-68.
Okay. Any additional items? No. We've got item 2, 34, 52, 53, and 68. Any additional items board members wish to call? Okay.
Move for approval of that.
Yeah.
Second.
And we got a second, so please vote on the rest. Okay, great. Ms. Jackson, item I-02.
I-02, I think we need to have a status update report. I don't mind approving this, but I think that if it's an annual review when it comes back, there should be some kind of report as to how the year went, not just blanketly approving it year after year after year. So that's my comment about I-02. I didn't get any feedback from anyone, but I think there should be some kind of feedback. It was a pilot last year that we tried, and I would like to see how it went. That's all.
Do you want to move approval?
Can we just table it till we get some information?
Until we get a...
Yes, it was a pilot last year, so can we get some information about it?
Okay, I can support that.
Okay.
This is item I-02, the Jacobs.
The Jacobs, right.
Yeah.
Can we find out from staff what the ramifications of doing that are?
Please. Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks. I have Shirley Culver, who is the program manager for the Mental Health Resource Center.
Wonderful.
Who can address some of those questions.
Okay.
Good afternoon. The program was slow in starting up, so they requested that they be allowed to just extend it until December so that it would have the full year of operation. So it's not lengthening it, it's just shifting the 12 months it's operational so that they have the data they need.
I'm fine with that, and if we can get a report in December, that would be great as to how it went over the whole time. Okay?
For the 12 months?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So, Ms. Jackson, you want to move approval
yes.
with the report? Okay.
Yes.
And we've got a motion and a second.
I just want to make sure I get a report when it gets done.
Okay, please vote on item I-02. Okay, great.
Okay.
Item I-34.
Item I-34, and let me see what the other ones, okay. Item I-34, my concern here is that my question was why this wasn't bidded out, and so apparently when we did the grant for this particular, for the 1D grant monies, we included this particular company in as part of that grant, and I'm not sure that it's appropriate because my concern then would be that we're not doing RFPs for things, but we're actually including them in grants going around the RFP process. We can approve this, but I just had questions about that. I know legal did a legal analysis of it, but it didn't address the fact that this was written into a grant, and so that supersedes any kind of RFP process. My question about why was this Mako, and I guess they're a good company, no offense to them, but why wasn't it bidded out? And it wasn't bidded out because it was written into this grant, and I don't think that's appropriate, but it was written and the grant was approved, so we have to go with this particular vendor.
Okay, do you want any answers to your question, though, Ms. Jackson, about why?
Well, legal's looking into it now because they didn't answer it quite totally here, so they're going to give me an answer later on. Okay. But that's why I had pulled it.
Yeah, well, in the field of, I'll call it vocational education, there are tools that are proprietary that are used very commonly in one industry and not used in another. Mm-hmm. A good example would be, while at one time, for example, Sears tools were the hand tools for automotive. They aren't currently. And so when the people, I used to run these kind of advisory committees for vocational ed, and many times the people from the industry would specify a specific product, and they didn't mean it to avoid competition. What they meant was to replicate the kind of situation, the tool situation that was currently in the industry. So I believe that's what happened in the case of the auto shop at Madison, that the people that were the industry sponsors basically identified tools because they were used to those kinds of tools and wanted the kids to have the same kind of hands-on experience. And I personally believe in that. I think that if you get an industry advisory committee, that sometimes you may have to think about what I call an industry standard versus a competitive bid. Many times, because the tools aren't exactly the same, you could write specs for each kind of thing, like a certain kind of a brake adjusting tool. You could write a specific description for that tool that would, not include, Sears or somebody else, but that's very complicated. And so, for a buyer, specifying a brand of tools may be the easiest way to do it, and also legal.
I'd move approval.
Second.
Okay, please vote. Okay, item I-52.
And 53 we can put together because they both belong to Ms. Meyer. Both of these are funding issues. First of all, the first one, I support the GATE certification, and I had said in the past we usually pay for it ourselves, the teachers, and at a time of economic crisis I didn't understand why we were starting to pay for it. And then the second one, I-53, the funding stream listed for instruction and curriculum is going away. And I didn't know about approving things that had funding streams that were going away at this particular time. And I would feel, because my concern is that we'd be approving things and we're razor thin to our balanced budget right now, and then we come back and say, and you say, well, this was approved last year under different funding stream, but we have contracts given to these people now. So I have a concern about that. Could you speak to that, please?
Yes, I know that the GATE program, as you know, is not going away, and it does involve the annual certification that we pay for. And so that certainly is a program that is continuing continuing. To speak to the item I-53, yes, this is a program that looked for aspiring administrators, and the administrators have been selected, but yes, you are correct. This is part of a budget that was under the administration, professional development and learning. So that is currently budgeted for this previous year, so it currently is there from last year, and it's funded.
I thought we swept all the monies up from last year.
No, not all of the monies are selected. Certain things that had been budgeted throughout the year still remained.
Okay. Can we get a list of those things, please, Mr. Koba? That would be interesting.
The things that are ongoing budgets?
Well,
we're at the end of the fiscal year later.
well, because we were told that all of these things were swept up, and even this morning when I went up to see Mr. Stover, that was my question. If the budget stream is not there next year, then where are these monies now? And I understand that if they were in a holding tank, they're going to be put someplace else. But my concern, and I'm just being very clear about it, is that we are razor close thin to our budget. And people look at $20,000 and say, oh, it's not much. But we have 200 schools and several departments, and if everybody has held on to their $20,000 here and there, it doesn't take long for it to send us over the edge.
Correct.
And that's why I just want to make sure that we don't have any other people.
And this was part of budgeted monies that were not swept. The unbudgeted monies were the monies that were swept.
Okay.
If I move approval.
Yeah.
Second.
Motion a second, Mr. Bennett.
Sure.
You
Did you have a comment?
vote.
Oh, I thought you said, wait a minute. Okay.
No.
All right. If you're talking that this money is budgeted in this fiscal year, and the activity is happening next year, I'm not comfortable with that. Either we budgeted the money this year and did it this year, or we didn't. And so when I heard the answer I got, my feeling was, no, I'm not going to place California State and roll money over. Basically, is this money for 53? I'm talking about 53. Is it currently budgeted in the coming year or not?
These are funds that are budgeted in 2010-11. It's not for this year. And I confirmed it is a valid budget source.
2010 and 11, it is budgeted?
Yes.
And I never saw it on the list. How did it get on the budget if we were basically voting for each individual item that we placed on the budget based on priorities? Was it encapsulated in some other item? You see, I thought we went through a process for 2010 and 11 where we had, in fact, I just asked for reconsideration of one of them, and somewhere in that list, if you say that's budgeted, it should have been there, and then if I didn't know it, then I guess a lot of people didn't know it. And then somebody asked a question about it and says, well, I don't know where the money is, and you're saying it's budgeted, but I don't remember voting for it. Maybe it's been one of those, in this whirlwind of budgeting, we've approved a lot of stuff like this that we don't know about.
This is in the category of there's two things. The current curriculum instruction office is being done away with. We are using the department codes for that current department and using them for the new departments that are coming in the assistant superintendent for instruction. So the code, while the 4-digit code there is an expiring code, we are reallocating it for next year. The source of the funding for I-53 is Title II dollars. Title II dollars are granted to the district and will go on year after year after year. They're recommending that you approve this based on the use of Title II dollars that come to us each year.
And we don't have any alternative of other ways to use it for Title II?
Yes, we do.
Well, see, this is what we went through. I'm going to go back to that matrix that was it happened to be in the exhibit that I brought up for reconsideration. You had a reproduction of the last budget vote, and it's an item 8, and then it was an attachment, and it was actually the chart. It says corrected salary budget solutions with votes. Okay, so now if I can't put that on the screen, somebody else can, but if that was put up on the screen, then I should be able to point to a place where it was a part of our budget decision to do this, or to handle Title II. Or do we say that we rolled over Title II without any expenditure categories at all? We just said, if it was Title II, we just approve it all?
No, we couldn't.
I don't think we did that.
We didn't.
Okay, so now here it is. So now you tell me which of these line items that I was a part of the decision on the budget, where I and the rest of the board set as our priority doing what we're now being proposed to do and saying it's in the budget.
Yeah, those decisions up there and all the decisions you made from February through June were with unrestricted funds. This would be a Title II fund, which is a restricted fund, and wouldn't have had an impact on the deficit. Each year we get these federal restricted dollars to use as the programmatic.
How interesting we can do Title I, but we can't do Title II.
Thank you, John. We have all these categories.
I'm sorry, but I'm Mr. Stupid sitting up here trying to figure out this budget, and it's bad enough. Now you're telling me you have control over everything but Title II.
No, I'm saying that the problem was an unrestricted problem, and in those cases we did look at Title I funds to use. There were no Title II, I don't believe, on there to use. It is ongoing revenue. It comes to us every year to use as the program people see fit under your direction, certainly.
So, okay, let me just finish my thought at the very least, please. Okay, so then the issue is we make decisions on only restricted funds. We don't make decisions on unrestricted funds, or we do it the other way. I thought we made budget decisions on the whole budget. Yeah. Okay? And when we come up with budget solutions, and somebody says, well, here's a Title I solution for a general fund problem, that you'd also bring up Title II solutions for a general fund problem. Because you'd have all of the options that you might want to have. I don't know, maybe cafeteria funds could be used for a for a general fund problem as well. So the real measure of I'll call it the full decision-making power of the board should be how do we use our money in what ways, not how do we use one kind of money in one way and another kind of budget in another way. And I don't think we've had that discussion. That's why this kind of question keeps coming up. I'm through.
There's a motion. I'm willing to support I-52, but not I-53.
Okay, let's
if you modify the motion.
Then. So please vote on item I-52.
I got to get back to it, just be sure.
8 items.
No, this is the potential solution. Sorry. I'm too slow for you guys. All right, so down to, I think I'm going to, this is all this high-tech stuff. All right, now here I am. All right, 52 is the agreement for gate. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Now we also, I believe, have a motion and a second on item I-53. Is that correct?
Yes.
One we just
Yes.
voted?
Yes.
So please vote on item I-53.
John?
I know, I'm thinking. I'll just abstain.
Okay. John abstains. The vote is 3-1. Okay, item I-68, Ms. Johnson.
I-68, and before, let me again thank the staff because they did give me in-depth answers for my questions. And I thank them for their work and having to do a lot of other things too. I-68, I think it would be helpful for me. I can't support this now, but I think it would be helpful if we had some type of board workshop for this particular item. I think there is some conversation and there's conversations to be had with some of the staff. I know Mr. Ward is in the audience, but I would favor some type of workshop where we could get all the information that we need. No, 68. This is by the CIF.
I'd appreciate hearing from Mr. Ward.
Yeah, I'd agree. Mr. Ward, would you mind coming up in addressing us on this issue.
As Bruce comes up here, I realize that this is a very difficult topic, and I did ask him I gave him a series of questions, asked him to check with what he knows and coaches, and appreciate where Ms. Jackson is in the testimony. So this is a good issue.
Good afternoon. I'd be more than happy to put together a workshop for the board and do that. And I would like to just say that this is a very sensitive issue, but I can reassure you through our grassroots, through the coaches, being on sport committees and the advisory committees and the ADs, and our principals have been very strong over the last 5 years of supporting some changes within the CIF. The CIF now at the state level and the section level is putting together committees to study their governance, which includes their bylaws, how they are governed, and personnel. That has been a long, arduous battle, and I hate to say battle, but issue within the CIF, and the board of managers are the ones who make those decisions. A lot of networking with superintendents and with our previous superintendents. And Mr. Payne is true. He is a very good coach for our district. Does a great job with our students. We have many coaches like that. And Ms. Jackson, and Mr. Burrow, you were involved in the San Diego High issue, and you probably don't remember, but unfortunately that was not just one issue at San Diego High, and that's why it was dealt with. The Poway issue comes before the Board of Managers with the CIF, which I sit on, and they make their report out, the recommendations are made, and we will find that when we do the board study, you'll find that we have one vote, but then one vote for every school. So we have 16 votes. Other districts have 12, 13, and there's a substantive part of that when we find out there's issues that really affect the San Diego Unified, that we have to do a tremendous amount of networking before that happens. So I'd be more than happy to
Would a vote on this hurt or hinder your efforts in this regard if we decided not to vote in support of this?
Well, and I don't like this because it holds the kids, our student athletes, hostage, and they're not as much the problem as we have some other issues, not even within the district, just some social issues that go on with AAU coaches, which we know we dealt with. The issue is that if we do not become a member, the only people we can play are within our district. Now, LA Unified can do that because they have 135 schools.
Yeah, but we can't go for CIF championship, and I know in LA that.
No, well, LA has their own CIF.
Okay.
We don't have enough schools. And I wouldn't, be honest, at this time advocate for that. Yeah, sure. I think the change has already started from within. I think that our principals have developed and have a very strong voice, and do voice that now. Our ADs and coaches also are very informed and very proactive in the committees they serve on.
So your recommendation is for us to approve the membership and that you're continuing to work on some of these problems with CIF? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That'd be the most supportive thing we could do for you at this time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but you will have a workshop for us?
Yeah, so I think we're hearing two things. I think there's support to renew the membership. I think there's real concern that we need to see some changes in CIF. We can't simply have a relationship with CIF where they're inflexible and can't work with us. And I certainly believe that when we look at next year renewing this membership, we've got to see some things that are changing. Ms. Jackson is recommending having a workshop
before then.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I can approve it, but I think we should have a workshop to educate us on it and the problems that we're dealing with, we're pushing for it as well.
What I would suggest to the board is that we have the workshop, let Bruce and a team, perhaps of ADs, coaches, come talk about the issues. And I think I would support renewing the membership, but with a very straightforward letter to the CIF. These are our concerns.
Yeah.
Exactly.
These are the issues we have, and we want them resolved.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, so please vote. Great, thank you, Mr. Ward. Okay, that concludes our meeting for now. We will reconvene at 5 o'clock to talk about the first reading of the 2011 budget.
Thank you. Oh, my God, I can eat.
She is so skinny. I remember she.
Yeah.
Totally different. So what?
Okay, let's get back together here. We're on to item H3. This is the first reading of the 2010-11 budget. And I'll allow the superintendent to catch his breath and lead us in. Oh, that's right. Thanks. Yeah, let me just, we've got a couple of speakers, so why don't we start there. Robert Hatchett and Linda Johnson.
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Linda Johnson. My address is on file. I'm speaking on H3. I know it's 2 years in advance, but I noticed there's custodial cuts and landscaping and eliminating a shift differential for custodial. My concern is taking away the shift differential is how can your custodians clean when students are there? The majority of the cleaning, if not all, is done at night when the students are there, not there rather. And the shift differential helps those custodians because, you know, they have to work till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And you can't clean when the students are there. My other concern is you're advertising for an assistant superintendent, $102,000 a year. You look at a custodian.
200.
Okay, well, I was just looking at it today, and it said $102,000 at the beginning. At an assistant superintendent. So, okay, say 200. That's even going to be better for me. Because how many custodians can you hire at that? If a custodian makes $20,000 a year, okay, and then they have his benefits. We'll say, what, $40,000 a year maybe for benefits and that. That's a lot of custodians. And how many of your assistant superintendents are going to go out and clean the classrooms and make them safe and clean for your students? How many of them are going to go out and clean the landscaping, the stuff from the homeless and everything? None of them can do that. But yet you're hiring these and you're letting custodians go and landscapers. That's not right. We are already short our custodian staff, and now you're trying to do another 15, if not more, and landscapers the same. Think about it, please. I know it's 2 years in advance, but that's why I'm speaking now, because you have to do your budget thinking now, and custodians and landscapers are needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Robert Hatchett. That's not Robert Hatchett. Okay, great. Bill, why don't you...
Thank you, President Pereira. We have a first reading tonight of the 2010-11 budget. Mr. Phil Stover and the CFO team have been working to bring this together. What I think their intention was to set the table for the final vote next week on the 29th. So they want to run you through the funds changes at a high level, show you some multi-year projections, talk to you about the assumptions, and be prepared to respond to questions or comments from the board. So over to Phil.
President Barrera, members of the board, Mr. Kova, I stand before you tonight with a sobering and a serious message. San Diego Unified is at the precipice of 3 more years of staggering deficits. These fiscal challenges will either divide us into camps, advocating for our piece of the ever-shrinking pie, or it will bring us together to advocate for the fiscal future of the district. Due to state deferrals of revenue, we cannot pay our basic bills this coming year without borrowing $250 to $300 million. All the deferrals from the state leave us like a worker whose paycheck is delayed months and then delayed again. What starts out as one less night eating out becomes a scramble to pay the basic bills. That is where we are. Some may blame us, others the state, and others the times. This is the time for each of us to put aside our differences, no matter how legitimate they may be. This is the time for us to put aside advocacy for any one program, place, person, or partnership. It is the time for each of us to come together for the future of our district. Our stakeholders will cry out for us to offer cuts that do not impact the places, the programs, and the people we all hold so dear. We did that in 2007, 2008. We did it again in 2008, 2009. We did our best in 2009, 2010, and now we face the impossible dream of doing it again over the next 3 years. We all struggle. We will struggle over that time to maintain basic education, the place, the people, and the pedagogy necessary to help our students learn. Essential, core, and basic components of student education must be our goal. It's all we will be able to afford. This evening, we are presenting to you next year's budget, $141 million smaller than this year's. We thank you in advance for the courage it will take to meet this challenge. It's my hope, and if no one gets too upset, my prayer, that we can turn this tide from a perfect storm to a wonderful opportunity to come together as never before. So with that, I'd like to move real quickly through the PowerPoint. I will try and highlight certain things for you, and then I'm happy to take questions as we go through. I'm happy to wait for you to wait. It's whatever you folks prefer. But we've had a path. You all familiar with the path we've taken so far. We started back in October with board workshops. We went through a brace process where we looked at restricted and unrestricted cuts in the central office primarily. We went through PBB where you gave us your values. We looked at our mandates, our minimal operations, and we made recommendations for cuts then. February, you as a board identified $50.5 million in reductions. In June, I'm happy to tell you tonight that we have a balanced budget before you. Now it's $100,000 over balance, but we are able to present you a balanced budget. because, again, in June, you took another $49 million in reductions. Our Transnode has been a rocky road, but I'm pleased to tell you tonight that because you made those cuts, because we were able to solve our structural imbalance and our imbalance in our liquidity by not having to borrow so much, because you made those difficult cuts, that we were just informed yesterday afternoon that Standard & Poor's has once again given us their highest rating, an SP1+, which should help us in many, many ways. Most of all, it will enable us to borrow the money at a lower interest rate than what we had originally thought. Moody's has not gotten back to us, as far as I know, have they? No. Moody's has not. We met with, or we had our call with Moody's the other day, and we expect today or tomorrow to get our rating from Moody's, and we hope that will be top rating as well. This chart just shows you very quickly. If you look on the left, please, all I want to do is highlight for you that the 2009-10 adopted budget was $2 billion. We have told people ever since I've been in the district that we are a $2 billion total funds district, not just our operating fund, but total funds. We're a $2 billion district. Well, if you look for next year at the same part of the slide below the chart, next year we will be a $1.87 billion district. So that's a 7% reduction across all funds next year, and a $141 million difference. If we look just at our general fund, and what I want to draw your attention here is we've been saying this is general fund. The next slide is unrestricted. This one is the total general fund. This is unrestricted, and the next one is restricted. What I want to draw your attention to are the first three bars in the chart, because it gives, I think, a stunning visual presentation that the first bar is certificated salaries, the second one is classified salaries, and the third one is employee benefits. Now, this particular slide is all general funds. But when you look at those first three and you look at the last three, you can see how we are people-centric, not heavy in the sense that we have too many, but in our budget, it is just dominated by the people portion of our budgeting. That's the total general fund, which we've always said is 1.22 billion or so, 1.2 billion. This next year it'll be closer to 1.1 billion. This is the unrestricted budget, which we've struggled with so much in making our reductions, and you see those first three again, that compared to the reserves, the books and supplies, the utilities, the indirects, the contracts that we have, the other things, and you see how heavy we are in our funding for people. And what that says to us is this. That says that next year and the year after that and the year after that, it's going to be increasingly difficult for us to identify reductions and cuts that don't involve people, whether they be in the classroom, whether they be classified people supporting the classroom. The options for us are shrinking more and more and more. So we go on to our first general fund multi-year summary. If I could draw I don't have a pointer, but if I could draw your attention over to the very right-hand two columns, our 2011 and 12 projection, as we have told you, line 6, we're looking at $127 million that we will have to. Oh, I do have a pointer now. Huh?
Low tech guy.
I thought Flash got me.
You got me.
You have to keep it pushed, huh?
Got to keep it pushed, right? This is really not going to be worth it.
Yeah,
I'd rather just point to it.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to wave that in people's eyes, Mr. Stover. So.
That's why I'm not your director of technology.
Yeah.
Don't ever make me interim director of technology. You'll be in big trouble. Here you have the $127 million that we're talking to you about specifically tonight. That is the deficit that we have to look at for the 11 and 12 projection. And I have to tell you that, look at this number as well, $221 million. And let me explain to you real quickly. That 127 is the number we have to balance for, and we have to report to the county that we have options that we have identified to do that for the out year. If all of those decisions there, that $127 million that we reduce, is a one-time cut, a transfer of expenses from one fund to another, the elimination of a contract or a consultant or a program that is not replicated, then for the next year, for 12-13, our deficit is $221 million. It skyrockets. If we are able to identify $127 million of ongoing reductions, things that will carry over into the next year and even into the future years beyond, then that $221 million deficit becomes a deficit in the 70s. In the 70s. Probably right now we're looking at about $78 million. So I would stress to you the importance of, as you consider later on in the year, as we begin working again on identifying these type of reductions that have to be taken, or what we're going to do about that imbalance, that we must consider those things that are ongoing, so that then we're not facing the following year a staggering deficit of $221 million. Right now, if we can identify all of those reductions as ongoing, that number gets down to about $78 million. So it's a huge benefit to us. The unrestricted, this is the same slide, but it's just showing our unrestricted dollars. You'll see there in those same columns, the 127. Now the deficit, if we don't reduce with dollars that are ongoing, becomes $205 million on the unrestricted side. Our general fund, we're looking at, for the first time since, I don't know, people that have been here a long time tell me that it's the first time they've seen it. We're actually also looking at a deficit in restricted funds as well in 12-13. $15.7 million deficit, and that is not something that we have faced before. And that's because we are utilizing both restricted and unrestricted dollars to solve our problem today. And as we keep doing that, it only makes it worse. And actually, 3 years out, we will have a structural imbalance in our restricted funds as well as one in restricted. What are our assumptions that we used? Each year when we give you the first interim, we've provided you the assumptions that we use to make the budget for next year. We're looking at a revenue limit ADA decline. That's not an enrollment decline, that's an ADA decline of 1,546 ADA units compared to our 2009-2010 budget. You see an ADA decline in special education and in our unrestricted ADA. We have applied a deficit factor in the sense of our revenue limit funding of about 18%. We're looking at a $245 reduction per ADA and actually a negative COLA as well. Our lottery dollars we're estimating to be $111. And that you calculate that by looking back at your previous year ADA. I read a statistic this morning I thought was really interesting. I was reading through some information on lottery funds, and in 2001-2002, we received $130 per prior year ADA unit. This year we're looking at $111. So our funds are shrinking from every possible way and manner and method that we receive them. We have not budgeted nor have we projected any of the mandated costs coming to us because we have no control over that, and it doesn't seem to be highly likely. We've made expense assumptions as well. We've added in the reductions that you have approved in February and June. We have had to transfer our class size teachers, our CSR teachers, to unrestricted, and that certainly is a hit on our unrestricted. We've transferred them from our SFSF funding. We have 203 FTE that will continue to be funded from restricted, and that'll be funded from both ERA money and SF dollars as well. We're looking at all of our capital outlay to be funded by our restricted funds, not encroaching on the unrestricted. And we're looking that for next year, our CSR, our Tier 3 flexibility, our textbook adoption, and deferred maintenance flexibility continues on an ongoing basis.
I'm sorry, real quick, Phil, could you go back to the last slide?
Sure.
So this is for the 10-11 budget we're talking about.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So why are we transferring the CSR teachers to unrestricted in 10-11?
Okay. Come up and tell. Our stimulus funds are going down?
Going down.
In 2009-10, we had enough funding on this SFSF to fund 190 teachers. For next year, we only have enough for 87 teachers. So those students, because they're part of our school site allocation model, just move over to the unrestricted side because we're not going down in class size. We have to continue to fund those positions. And then this will be year 2 of our CSR, the 16.5 to 1 at those schools.
So this is the fiscalization portion of the stimulus, but not the Title I portion of the stimulus.
It's the CSR is the Title I ARA dollars, the 113 of the 190. That's the stabilization piece of it.
Okay, I thought that we had for the stabilization that we had spent more than half of that for this year, but I thought that for the Title I we had split it in 2 for this year and next year.
Yes.
So that's correct. Okay. Yep.
We're allowing for step and column increases for both certificated and classified, of course. Increase in health and welfare benefits of 9.71%. We've built the furlough implementation in for all of our units. Utility increase of 8.37%. We're looking at our low range budgeted enrollment to decline from budget 9-10 to budget 10-11. Our SERP liability, we're in the second year of paying our SERP liability. And we're looking at local contributions to restricted programs, 2 of them. Special ed, we're estimating $118.7 million, and to our community day school ALBA program, $1.9 million. And here's the infamous funding cliff. This is the reduction in our federal stimulus dollars. And you'll see next year, fewer FTEs, fewer dollars, and then in 2011 and 2012, we hit the cliff and those dollars go down. So in 2011 and 2012, 87 FTE to be absorbed and unrestricted as part of our allocation model, and then 116 in 11 and 12, 116 have to be eliminated due to the conclusion of the programs at the class size programs at Title I schools. Now here's the slide. This is the slide that I think is perhaps the most staggering in my mind of all. As I look back on it, I see, having been here for each of these years, we see how it has gotten worse and worse. We started really with deliberate cuts mid-year of 07-08. And the $53.1 million that you see there as a deficit we had in 07-08 was both restricted and unrestricted. We had to take cuts in restricted and unrestricted that particular year. We did that mid-year 07-08. 08-09, it went to $90 million. This current year that we're in right now, it's been $93.1 million. Next year, if we look at the projected deficit from all sources, it's 134, and then 11-12, $127 million. And again, we're asking you tonight to, for the purposes, as you know, for the county, we have to project a plan, a methodology for going forward to solve our deficits. So what our focus tonight is looking at that $127 million. Now, in big, bold, black letters there, you'll see that over 5 years that our deficit, either in actual terms, going back, we're pretty much this year looking at actual numbers at this point in the year and projecting the next 2 years. So over a 5-year period of time, we're looking at a total budget deficit of $497.8 million, almost $500 million that we have had to solve for in one way or another, that you have had to make very, very difficult decisions and will have to make very difficult decisions to solve over a 5-year period. $500 million, it's absolutely staggering when you consider the totality of that.
Mr. DeBeck?
Yes, sir.
Tell me the assumptions that got you to, on the same top, that got you to 124.6 in 2010 and 11, and then a reduced amount of deficit the following year. Is it more income, or is it an assumption of the cuts?
It is the cuts that you have made that are ongoing cuts.
Yeah.
This year you have made cuts to programs that will enable us to carry them into next year. We're carrying over, we've carried over freezes into next year, and we are making assumptions in carrying those forward into 11-12. And that's why remember I said that if we didn't do that in the next year out, it would go up to $220 million. If we hadn't done that this year, it would certainly go up as well. And it is better only in the sense that it's not as bad as this year, because of the cuts that you've made. Now, $127 million is certainly, catastrophic. We know, and our projections show, that in 12-13, that those numbers go up to $220 million, depending.
This is cumulative, right?
It is cumulative. That's why we have to look at the year over year over year over year impact of the type of reductions that you make.
So you're looking
considering the fact that you're also looking at a greater and greater and greater portion of our overall budget being personnel. That makes it even more challenging. Yes, sir.
But each year it's an additional cut prior to what we've cut the year before. So what you're saying is in 11-12, it's not quite as much of a cut as 10-11, but it's on top of all the cuts we already made in 10-11. So it's much worse in 11-12 than it is in 10-11. Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. I was just saying that it's the additional, each year it's the additional cuts that we're making, which are in addition to the cuts that we've made the previous years.
Yes.
So while in 11-12 it's a $127 million additional cut, it's not that that's better. It's like everything we've already cut, and then we're going to go in and cut $127 million more.
Yes, it accumulates. When you make year after year cuts, it does take the cuts you've made from the previous year that you carry over, and then additional cuts on top of it. If we gave you a cumulative amount, that those dollars would be much higher in the sense of
Superintendent.
I just wanted to add to what the board members are observing. You have a number of negative forces all intersecting. You have a combination of declining enrollment, small factor, but a negative one. You still have operating costs going up, health care, and utilities. And I will tell you that we've made some great inroads in trying to flatten those two, but we cannot keep pace in a very dramatic, positive way with those kind of operating costs going up. And I think that the ongoing state deficit driving revenue down 88 per child while expenditures go up all work in a negative spiral way downward.
Yeah, and Bernie wants me to remind you as our Sacramento person that if the state does more bad things to us, that we're not forecasting in this budget. If there is increasing reductions in revenue limit or in some other area, obviously that will just get worse. And we'll show you here the impact that kind of thing has on us in just a minute. So we're looking at focusing tonight on the $127 million for 11-12. And as I've said several times now, the reductions need to be ongoing or the 12-13 deficit will increase. Right now, if all $127 million of the solutions were ongoing, we would be looking at a $78.8 million deficit for 12-13. And the plan, the intent for you folks between now and really for next week as you approve the budget will be to include in that budget a plan, a methodology for identifying that $127 million in reductions. You're not making those reductions, you're not making those cuts, but you are putting together a plan, a methodology, a strategy to get there for that future year. Now, the county has, we talked to the county this week, and the county has informed us that because of the severity of the budget crisis and the challenges that are facing every district, that we will not have to identify cuts for the next out year for 12-13 until the second interim. So we were saved from that because that would have been an overwhelming challenge at this particular point. So we're focusing on the 11-12, $127 million. And then again, I would just tell you, not that we're looking for you to take any action, but for information purposes, that in 12-13, for the very first time, we'll be looking at a restricted potential problem as well. So we have for you a list of reductions on these two pages that, if I can go right down to the bottom there, these particular reductions would get us to $128 million to solve for that crisis. We are looking at over 1,400 FTE reductions to achieve that. That's how serious our problem is. To achieve $127 million in reductions, we're looking at approximately, this is approximately, a reduction of 10% of our total workforce in the district. And that is why we were in a cabinet meeting one day and Mr. Markey made the comment that we're no longer at the point of reducing in our district, we're at the point of perhaps having to look at transforming our district. And with these kinds of FTE counts here, to get to this kind of a number, it becomes somewhat staggering. And that is the number we need to hit. We need to hit $127 million. These reductions are horrible. They're terrible. They're unacceptable. And I can only stand here before you and tell you that we must be heavily engaged in advocating, working hard to advocate with our public policymakers at all levels to keep us from having to face in the next fiscal year those kinds of reductions in reality. Now, in order to give you a demonstration of some of the potentials to us financially, we've identified, I believe there's 7 up there of impacts that could come to us in a positive way, one negative, from decisions that are made in Sacramento or in Washington. These are external factors. Our parcel tax is certainly a local initiative. There's the governor calling us to say, I'll help you out.
Sorry.
Everything's solved.
You didn't read that statement.
We are looking at I don't want to go through all of these in much detail to take the time, but a parcel tax, we've been talking and meeting regularly about a parcel tax. If we would have a state renewal of categorical flexibility, that would certainly help us to a large degree. If we just had a level revenue limit funding with no deficits in, look at how much that would mean to us in our out years. We would basically have our problem solved if we had no more reductions or didn't have to anticipate further reductions to our revenue limit. The Assembly Speaker's budget bill for next year would certainly kick in and help us quite a bit. The federal government has been talking about the teacher's job bill extensively. That would help us significantly over a 2-year period of time. Our SDA reduction, they're still apparently, as of the emails I've gotten today and yesterday, they're still debating and discussing this up in Sacramento. This would be a negative hit to our cash flow over a period of years, about 7.7. Monica's estimating for us about 7.7. We've told you all along it would be about $8 million if it actually comes to pass. And then if the class size reduction penalties were eliminated, that would certainly help us over a 3-year period of time as well. So if you go down and you add up all of those, obviously we can't hope, we can't budget, we can't plan that they will come to bear, but it's certainly, if any portion of those were able to happen, that would help us tremendously. So I think what this tells us is that a significant part of our strategy isn't financial, it's not cutting, it's advocacy with those decision makers who have the ability to help us, and you can see those are very, very serious.
I would say that's the basis
I just
for
want
legislative advocacy.
Thank you. Just go back to that real quick.
Sure.
This is a really important slide for us to all understand as a community. These are various areas that if we advocate successfully, we're in an entirely different position than the horror picture that you've presented. And one that I just want to really emphasize is the third one down. If we simply receive the same level of funding from the state that we received this year, again in 10-11, and again in 11-12, and again in 12-13, we're not facing the kinds of decisions that we're making. And that's a decision that the legislature and the governor have before them right now in the balancing of the budget. The governor has proposed this $245 per ADA reduction. The legislature has yet to approve that. And the legislature has different choices in front of it. And if that budget is balanced in a way that doesn't, we're not talking about restoring the cuts from the last couple of years, which we need to be talking about at some point. If we're just talking about staying level with where they're at, not cutting further, no more cuts to education, then we've got a very, very different picture.
Very, very different. That's why our advocacy, anything we can do to try and stimulate that would just be tremendous for us.
Well, and I'd like to add something onto this list, and that is, this piece where cities, local governments are receiving the interest back on what they pay when they have to borrow money to make up for this deficit, or for the deferrals that Sacramento is paying. Local governments get paid that interest back. We don't.
We do not.
And it's a significant amount of change. We have to borrow, what, $250 million this year?
Yeah, we will borrow from both our Transnote and our internal school
So what's the interest on
money.
that? When we do that, it's $5 million? Okay, so $5 million. I know that's a little piece compared to these big numbers.
It's better now because we got a better rating. But
when local government is getting that opportunity, I can't believe that they are doing this to our schools. But we have to pay it back, but the city doesn't. Or we don't get paid back, the city does. It's
Phil, if I could ask a question.
It is.
Yes, sir.
It is criminal.
Do we have a calculation for what our per student ADA is going to be now?
It's usually what it is.
We were at $4,800 per student. If all things being equal, we would have been over $6,000 per student, but we must be going backward toward $4,000 per student at this rate.
Yeah, it has gone down significantly. We are 4,800 or under. We have we should be at 6, and I don't know do we have an exact number? It's about 48. 49.57, and that's at least a 20% drop. Very, very quickly, we need next Tuesday night the budget adoption. That will be to adopt a balanced budget for next year and to present a plan to the county for a methodology for the out year. You don't adopt that, you don't approve that as actual cuts, but we have to present a methodology to them. And then you see the rest of the dates down there. Important, Bill has requested that on the 16th we have a staff budget development retreat, so you can see that we get to have some time off between June 30th and July 16th, and then we start all over again with the $127 million problem and trying to identify our actual reductions for that. So that's our presentation tonight. Hopefully it's been informative for you, and I have the whole team here. If you have any questions, we can certainly, amongst us, answer the question.
So this is information only tonight.
Yes,
we'll take action next Tuesday. And the only thing I appreciate it very clearly laid out, and I do appreciate the slide talking about with different public policy decisions how different our picture changes. The only thing that I think I'd want to sort of throw in is that I appreciate the notion of, if we're looking at not next year but the year after needing to cut an additional $127 million, that that we've got to transform our district. I understand that. But let's not be Orwellian. Let's understand what that means. We're destroying our public education system. We have 30 kids in a kindergarten class, half day. A number of those kids we just sentenced to dropping out of school. We just made that sentence for those kids. And we can, transform all day long at that point. But what we're transforming is the notion that every kid in this country has a fair shot. That's what we're transforming. We're moving away as a society from that basic notion if that's what we're facing. So what's critical is that we don't allow that to happen. And we've got work in front of us over the next 6 months. And all of us together, if we care about custodians and landscapers, if we care about teachers, if we care about parents and the CBED program that we just heard about, if we care about the Language Academy and the magnet schools, if we care about our vice principals, if we care about GATE, if we care about VAPA, if we care about everything that we talk about every time this comes up, we have to act now. And that's all of us, and I appreciate the statement that you made at the beginning, Phil. That's all of us coming together to send a very different message to the people whose public policy decisions will determine whether kids have a real future or whether kids have no future. We all have to come together now. And that's what's, I think, in front of us, over the next several months. So I appreciate you making that case as clear as possible. Dr.
Just add on to that. We look at these numbers, and there are 10% of the workforce, X millions of dollars, but it really is, what is the effect on the kids, on the educational system in our district? I mean, it really, truly is destroyed. We just went through a series of graduations this week, and those students have benefited from the investment in public education over the last 12 or 13 years. The kids coming up in the coming years will not have that, and that is, and we can say, well, this is it's Sacramento's fault, and they're not doing what they need to do. But obviously, we put people in Sacramento. We have sent them there, and we have a responsibility to make sure that they're actually carrying out our wishes. And we really do need to send the alarm bells. I mean, we have been scrambling and scrambling just to keep the ship afloat for the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And we have, with lots of ingenuity, been able to do that. But it's very clear that when you see the type of solutions that come with these amount of cuts, that the ship is not going to stay afloat. We're basically going to say, okay, we'll keep something operating, but we'll toss a lot of people off the ship. They just won't get it, and we'll still have a skeleton of a district. And this We just really need to, I think this is a unique opportunity, as Mr. Stover said, for everybody to really come together. We have had differences about different programs, different ideas, different methodologies, but we all agree on the value of public education. We've seen the results in the last few days, and if we don't really get spurred into the action in just the coming weeks and months, because right now we could, as Mr. Stover pointed out, even in the very immediate sense, we're approving a budget, and they could turn around next month and slash it more and say, come back, we need another $10 million, we need another $20 million, $30 million, $40 million. And that's just for right now, and then we're going for the next year. And at what point is everybody going to become outraged that we can't operate our society this way?
Yeah. Always. Whenever you talk about the proposed solutions, and I look at the list, and I have to go to the bottom line, and I look at the bottom line, and the proposed reductions include 10% personnel reductions for this school district. That's in addition to whatever ones we did this year. This is a solution for the following year. Now, and I always get all edgy about these kind of things, and it's the more you say, the more enemies you make. But the real issue is, for me, is I see on here versions of cannibalism that I've always said is the same. You talked earlier about how we're all going to have to get together and revisit the school district and work together. Well, if a school district has, I'll call it, cares about its people, then it's got to make some choices around cutting programs or cutting wages or cutting whatever. And all those things that you propose are all program cuts. And, I'm uncomfortable with that. And the reason I feel the way I do is because I believe that, just like we did when we talked about this most recent little thing about the CBET people, is you got to maintain a cadre of people that know how to do what you want to restore. You can't just promise you're going to restore it, because you take a program that's taken 20, 30, 40 years to develop and to refine. I can pick one, maybe many of you would have them, and sometimes it seem to always come up on the hit list because they look like frills. And so here's, OSAL. Let's do OSAL. I've seen OSAL for the last probably 10-year program cuts. The problem that I have is that the talent that it takes to develop a program and the refining of that program over the years to make it as effective as it may be, and that's another piece, because we don't have, I challenge you to give me an evaluation of any of these on this list. It's easy to say, oh, that one, that's an accounting job, but the evaluation job should come first. That is, which of these programs is the most valuable, not in the public opinion range, but in terms of accommodating student achievement, if that's our message. But see, there's no index of that. There's no index here. This looks like more of the same. Let's find programs to cut. And if you cut programs, you do cut personnel eventually. In fact, this very cut gives you a 10% personnel cut. A 10% personnel cut. Sometime, we're going to have to explore the idea, and it's rejected this year, that we spread this pain out over our whole workforce in order to maintain the ability to keep programs together for the future. Now, maybe it's less cuts, less personnel cuts or partial program cuts. But see, these are all, I'll call it total program cuts. And I don't think the community is going to be thrilled with that. And I think they're going to look to our employees to say, come on, show some leadership in how to maintain these things you all been bragging about all these years, instead of just doing them away, dumping them in the trash, and saying, oh, we're going to revitalize the district some new way. Well, Yeah, there are better ways to teach school. I think some of it's being done by people outside of the school district. But that doesn't mean we can't compete. And that may mean to do some things that put pressure on. Because is it 80? It's pretty close to 80% of our budget is personnel. And even when you make a 10% cut in people, you must be impacting a whole lot.
We're between 91 and 92.
Well, so
91 to 92%.
So then, if 90% of the budget is people, then 90% of the cut should be people. But it's not. I know where this can lead, but I mean, I think basically, when you put stuff on the table, you say these are proposed. I think they seem to be recommended. And I don't see any recommended cuts that affect personnel, and maybe you're being sensitive to, let's say, the history or the present environment. But I think when we're talking about what we have to do in order to handle this kind of a problem, we have to put all the stuff, even if it's uncomfortable, on the table. And I think that's a responsibility, frankly, of the administrative leadership. I thank you for the work you've done. It's certainly, it's kind of work I would expect to happen. But I think I need to say, I think I want to see more. I want to see more in the realm of, don't just cut programs and cut 10% of the employees. Maybe you want to cut 10% of the employee costs. And, there I just lost a few, but it's okay with me because you have to say what's right, not, what's popular.
Yeah, I have to chime in. The state of California funds, if you take a look at total tax receipts, everyone, it's very fond to say, up in Sacramento, they will tell you that we spend 40% of our general fund on education. So what's our beef? We're getting more than anyone else, so on and so forth. But if you look at total tax receipts, for all the states in the union, California only spends 35% of total tax receipts on education. Everybody does the whole general fund game differently throughout the United States, so that's a red herring. There's no way that you can really calculate that, correctly, to understand the numbers clearly. But if you take total tax receipts, 35% of our budget, and that was last year, is spent on education. California has got a problem. And, Mr. Burr is absolutely right. We are talking about the education, public education, in the state of California. We're going to throw it away. We saw it in my generation with Proposition 13. And we saw how that devastated, and we just continued like good little soldiers to continue on. But I want to remind everyone that we are not alone in this battle. Districts up and down the state of California are facing this crisis, and there's a lawsuit. There are two lawsuits. One, as I have mentioned before, filed by the California School Boards Association in conjunction with the PTA and with the Association of California School Administrators. Not exactly really, litigious sort of people. These are reasonable, rational people who are saying there is a deep problem with funding in the state of California that is not simply inadequate, but unconstitutional. Those are really strong words from some very level-headed people. And they've filed this lawsuit, and I think we need to make sure that we're in support of that. There's also a lawsuit up in Los Angeles that the ACLU has filed regarding adequacy. And I think that we should look at that as well. This is a fight for public education. And believe you me, there are people that would just as soon that we go back to the days of Charles Dickens and that we don't fund public education anymore. That public education, cease to exist and that people pay for their own children's education. And as outrageous as that sounds, I've actually met people like this and had them tell me this to my face. There are people out there that don't believe in public education, and quite frankly, we are going to lose it, not because necessarily of these budget cuts, but because people are going to start abandoning public education. The taxpayers in this country who are sending their own children to school, taxpayers like you and me, when we see that our children are not getting the type of education that they need in order to compete, not forget the global economy, just to compete locally, we're going to make sure our kids get what they need. And if that means that we have to pull them out of public education and send them to private education, we'll do that. And then what happens to public education? Then it'll truly be abandoned. truly. So, we are not alone in this. We need to fight. We need to advocate. And the only one thing that we have control over is that parcel tax as far as local revenue is concerned. That we can do at least locally, and the funds will stay here in support of public education. But we've got to fight up in Sacramento, and we've got to make our case in Washington, D.C., where it's necessary as well. But this is just this is really frightening. I have done this for as many years as I have been on the Board of Education. We have looked at this budget every which way. This year we did zero-based budgeting. We took it all apart. We put it all together again, not once, but twice, with the BRACE funding where we had the administration do it, and then we did it ourselves with the priority-based budgeting. And, there's only so much we can do anymore. We are reduced to a budget at this point that is the equivalent of someone making $18,000 or $19,000 a year having $1 in the bank. And that's not because we're careless or because we're frivolous or anything else. It's a crisis. This is a crisis.
Okay, thank you, Phil, and the staff for putting this together. It's great work. So we are adjourned.